Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Tech Vivad finale, brought to you by CSI, Bennett University. It has been a great journey. We witnessed an enthusiastic and energetic session yesterday, and we wish to see the same today. Today, we have a set of wonderful judges with us. I would now like to invite Altamash to introduce the judges for today.
Thank you, Udyan. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, welcome to Tech Vivad. Now, I'd like to take the opportunity to introduce our judges to everyone present here. So, first we have Mrs. Kunjan Rayani. She's currently pursuing her PhD from NIT Delhi in Computer Science Engineering. She is the Assistant Professor in Department of Computer Science Engineering, and she has also received fellowship for PhD program in Computer Science and Engineering by Ministry of Human Resources and Development, Government of India. Welcome to Tech Vivad, ma'am. We hope you have a great time in judging the debate. Moving on, next we have Dr. Manjeet Kaur with us. She is the Assistant Professor in the Department of Computer Science Engineering. She did a from Thapar Institute of Engineering and Technology, Patiala, in Computer Science and Engineering. She finds her area of interest in information security, artificial intelligence and machine learning, and meta-heuristic techniques. We're glad you're here, ma'am, with us. We hope you enjoy the debate. And last but not the least, we have Dr. Sangeeta Shukla. She's the chair of Department of Humanities and Social Sciences. She did a PhD in Department of English from SGBAU Amravati. She has a vast experience in managerial communication, leadership communication, and corporate communication, etc. Thank you for taking out time, ma'am, to help us judge this event even better. Now, without further ado, we move forward with the event. Over to you, Udyan.
Thank you, Altamash. We will now begin with our debate, which is a parliamentary debate. And the topic for today's debate is the ban on Chinese apps is prejudicial to sovereignty and integrity of India, security of state and public order. So the participants for today's debate are in Group 1, Ojaswa Charag, Shreya Mukherjee and Prashant Vallabhan. And in Group 2, Muskan Vaswan, Akshat Rastogi and Shruti Alluri. We will now conduct a toss to decide which team will go for the motion and which team will go against the motion. So I would like one of the members of the Group 1 to choose either heads or tails.
We'll take heads.
Okay, so the Group 1 has heads and the Group 2 has tails. So it's tails. I would like to invite someone from Group 2 to choose their side for the motion or against the motion.
Okay, so we've chosen to be against the topic, which basically means that we will be for the ban of apps.
So let us begin with the debate. I'll stop sharing my screen. I will be the speaker for today. And since you have gone through the rules, you must be aware of all the instructions mentioned there. So please try to be courteous with each other and do not try to distract others by raising unnecessary points of information. And I would also like to inform you that no points of order or points of personal privileges would be allowed here. So I would request the Honorable Prime Minister to begin with the opening remarks. Honorable Prime Minister, please begin.
Okay, Honorable Chairperson, distinguished delegates, representing the Government of the Republic of India, we believe that the ban on Chinese apps is not prejudicial to the sovereignty and integrity of India, security of state and public order. We believe that the ban of these Chinese apps will prevent cyber crimes in India and the leak of the leak of the data of Indian people to these Chinese companies that will affect the security of our state and the law and order of the state as well. The central government decided to block access to these Chinese apps after the border standoff at Galwan in the eastern Ladakh. In June, the center blocked 59 apps from all these Chinese companies such as TikTok, Shein, Clash of Clans, Share It under Section 69A of the IT Act. In July, we have banned 47 other apps, and in September, it added 118 mobile apps to the list. While these apps happen to be one of the demands of the youth, we need to make sure that these demands, this this popularity of these apps does not harm the integrity of the nation. As I would like to present some arguments for that. Recently, there was this app known as TikTok, where the communist movements were spread. There were videos regarding the support of terrorist acts in India that were going viral, and that was affecting the nation's that was affecting the security of the nation. They were affecting people's minds, and they were provoking them to go against the nation, to go break the law and order of the nation. Also, I'd like to state another fact that some of these Chinese applications have been stealing the data of the Indian population, and they have been using that to harm our. They have been using that data to conduct several cybercrime attacks on the Indian population. So so that is why our ministry has decided to order the blocking of these apps, as there were several reports that were received from the cybercrime organization, and and the Ministry of Home Affairs as well. And that is the statement I wanted to present here.
Thank you, Honorable Prime Minister. We will now move on to the next speech. The Leader of Opposition.
Good evening to the worthy speaker and others present here. The fact remains that the banning of the apps, which was conducted by the government over the past few months, has overall banned a total of 267 apps, and a lot of debate has been raised about this, talking about whether or not this move was something that could be condoned or something that should be moved against. Now, it is a firm belief of the opposition that the banning of those Chinese apps is prejudicial to the sovereignty and the integrity of India, the security of state, and the public order. All facts stated, the fact remains that it is the intellectual property right of the people who over in China that the apps be published wherever that they may feel so. But yes, while the national security is something that is of a bit of a concern, but the fact remains that the use of those apps was not directly affecting any kind of situation in the world. Yes, there were a lot of privacy breaches, but once again, this can be traced back to lack of scrutiny by the people who use those apps. A knife is not good or bad in its own way. It's about how the person who's wielding the knife uses it. And once again, it falls upon the person who uses whatever tool or implementation that they have at their hands as to how that thing may be used. Certain arguments have been raised, Mr. Speaker, regarding the fact that certain apps have been spreading anti-national ideas. Now, the term anti-national, of course, has lost all meaning in our country because of certain incidents which will remain unnamed as of now. But the sentiment against democracy or the sentiment in favor of certain non-democratic ideas is once again something that a person may have in their minds, but also not practice. The fact remains that that's a person's own individual choice, and if some non-state action is taken, then there is where the issue lies, and if no action is taken, then there really is no harm, no foul. It is up to the law enforcement agencies and the government, of course, that the issue falls, that if such a issue was to take place, that it may be resolved and no such breaches of security take place. The cyber cells, of course, have been working to make sure that these various apps, that any kind of backdoor works, that backdoor, I'm so sorry, that any kind of backdoor siphoning of the data or any other such breaches of privacy or breaches of, as they called it, national security do not take place. Recently, the ban against the app PUBG was, I believe, declared to as having been lifted or eased, which is where we need to think about the fact that the government, which openly said that this kind of an app is bad for our country, is bad for how the nation is functioning. If it is allowed to continue after a certain amount of time has passed, then this brings into light the question that perhaps the banning of those Chinese apps were only done as a PR stunt, considering the situation in the Galwan Valley. That said, coming back to the main topic, the banning of those apps was definitely against the sovereignty of the country, because these apps brought in foreign exchange. These apps were important in the economic standpoint when we consider the fact that people were actually bringing in foreign currency in the form of winnings from various tournaments or so on and so forth. And that is what I have to say as of now.
Thank you, Ojaswa. We will now move on to our next speaker, which is the Deputy Prime Minister.
Good evening. Honorable Speaker, I would like to get to light the facts that our respected speaker, leader of opposition just mentioned. So he was talking about how it is up to the country whether or not or where the apps would reach or where they would be accessible. Well, it is also up to our country whether the people or the citizens can access those apps and use them for the betterment of the nation. So, what I would like to state is that there were a lot of these apps and there were a lot of issues that came along with them that did actually threaten the security of our country. And he was also talking about PUBG. Well, PUBG, we don't have to talk about how dangerous and threatening it was, not only to our country, but also many countries where young minds were very impressionable. And the lack of scrutiny that he was talking about, I'm sorry if this is too direct, I apologize. Um, the lack of scrutiny doesn't come from the people itself. Now, regardless of whether each individual thinks about this or not, in the end, the result is the same. It is leading to harm of the people in the country. And that is a valid reason to be able to say that the ban on these apps is not exactly prejudicial because it's not harming our people in any way. There are several other alternatives that can be used in order to suffice our need for them if any necessary, but that way it is not prejudicial. And coming to integrity, obviously when we think about it, since there are a lot of there are a lot of harmful things that are being cut back upon, it is adding to the integrity of the country and it's not going back on it. It is being helpful. And I would like to support our Prime Minister when he said that the ban on Chinese apps was a good decision by the country and that it was in response to how we were actually not treated well on the border unnecessarily. And by all authorized means, it was a necessary action. Thank you.
Thank you, Shruti. We will now move on to the next speech, which is by the Deputy Minister of the Leader of the Opposition.
Good evening, everyone, Mr. Speaker, and everyone else present here. Now, to begin with, the ban on Chinese mobile applications has been stated as being the commencement of India's decoupling from China as a nation and on an economical level, which is something that we all heard about when this was first released to us as being part of the public. And now, this is obviously bound to create repercussions not only for China, but also for India. And as we already know from witnessing the past actions of China and India together as two nations, they both share a relation which exists at a very international level. And hence, China and India as two economies have a mutually beneficial relationship, and hence whatever transaction takes place on a day-to-day basis between the two of them as nations is a win-win. And government control in a way like this, where the government is going out of their way in order to target a particular nation and ban and goes to the extent of banning apps that are launched from that nation, is what urges the public to opt for more such ways of misconduct wherein they'd be choosing to go
Point
out
of
of their way.
information.
All right, please go
Point of
ahead.
information, I'd like
Please
to
go ahead, yeah.
add that for years, China has supported Pakistan in its terrorism activities, supplying it with intelligence reports, arms and ammunition, and satellite facilities. It has also been encroaching into into the Indian territory. How can banning these Chinese apps will put pressure on the country, as its trade will be hugely impacted. How can you,
Okay, all
what
right.
is your counterpoint to
Honorable,
that?
Honorable Prime Minister, or do you have any evidence for this? If yes, please put it up.
Well, I have received reports from the
Please
our
put it up in the
cybersecurity
chat
cells.
section. Please put
Okay,
it up in
okay,
the chat section. Yeah, Shreya,
okay.
go ahead.
All right. So continuing, yeah, this is what urges the public to opt for a misconduct wherein they'd be choosing to go out in order to access seem like hidden information, things that are being hidden from the eye of the public. Hence, this pushes them to partake in more such illegal means of attaining those apps ultimately. And this is what will lead the government to finding ways in which they can control this to a higher extent. For now, they're banning something. And whenever the government goes to the extent of choosing to hide certain pieces of information, that is what urges the public to, again, do something that is unconventional and almost again partake in these secretive acts. Coming to the point of privacy, it is again a very personal option when one visits the platform where they can purchase apps or install them on their phones. There are a set of terms and conditions that are made very prevalent and apparent to that user, and those must be abided by, right? That is what is conventional, that is what we're known to do. But at the end of the day, if those are not being abided, again, all of the responsibility and accountability comes directly on the person who has chosen to download that app. So again, it is entirely and solely dependent on no one but that individual. Again, collectively on a national level, this has to be controlled by the government, but it's a very international thing. No other countries or nations can be pulled into something of this sort. When it comes to video games, which was something that was brought up by the government's team, video games in general cause massive amounts of harm, especially ingraining ideas of violence, and so on into the minds of public, into the minds of the younger generation, quote unquote. So if we were to specifically target PUBG as an app, yes, it is causing some amount of detrimental, it does have detrimental effects on young minds, but which video game doesn't? Yeah, that's it. That's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Shreya. We will now move on to the next speech, which is the government whip.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and respected speaker. So I would like to target singular points that were brought up by all of the members of the opposition party. Starting with the opposition leader, he brought up the point of banning the apps as perhaps a stunt of public relations. I believe it was made very clear, and he very vaguely also in his own speech avoided the point that it was actually done for the defense of the nation. Now, again, when we're talking about the sovereignty of a nation, we're talking about its supreme authority on all actions that go for the nation. And when we're talking about the nation, we take the government as a representation of that nation. When China and India are at the brink of war, and the user's information from India can be extremely harmful to the nation, which you said, oh yeah, that's definitely an issue, which you agreed was an issue. However, the main issue you decided to chose to vaguely go against and then called it a PR stunt. So that was my counter for that. And the deputy opposition leader also brought up the fact about, hold on a second, let me just remember the exact quote. Okay, the deputy opposition leader also brought up the fact that gaming apps, that The decision to choose and to use an app was entirely a personal individual's. Yes, that is in fact correct. But however, it is not their entire sole responsibility when everything that's mentioned in the terms in their privacy policy is not abided by, which, by the way, is the meaning of unauthorized is the meaning of taking unauthorized user data. So when you're signing up for any application, they give you a privacy policy. When that is not abided by, that is called unauthorized usage of data, because they're not authorized to use it by any legal means.
Point of
So it is
information.
not yes, go for it.
Right. Ma'am, we're talking about the privacy policies. So there I would like to raise a point that yes, you mentioned that a lot of people don't read through the privacy policies. They simply skip through them, which is the lack of scrutiny as mentioned by me. The fact remains, Mr. Speaker, that this is where the shortcomings of the people as well as the cyber cells or the government comes into play. Like this is where like the privacy policies are something that are very readily available to cyber cells as well as government officials at any point of time. And if a person does not scrutinize the given privacy policy or and does not realize that their data is being taken, it is the job of the concerned authorities to go through those statements which are made available to them simply for that reason.
Okay,
And so that they may find out that there are no backdoor issues or that there's no way for the privacy to be violated.
very relevant. You just aided my point, because the government did in fact find that these privacy policies were not abided by, hence they took an action. You expect the government to take the action, but when they take the action, you have a problem, is basically what you're stating. So
It's
what
a
do you
pain to follow up.
denied? Um, can I deny it, or does the speaker have to intervene in that?
Yes, you can deny it. Please
Right.
go ahead.
Right. So again, here, when you say that the individual itself is responsible for reading the privacy policy, I'm telling you, they read the privacy policy that was given to them. But the privacy policy was given to them was not abided by from the corporation itself. And what the government, the authority that protects us as users, as Indians, did against that, stop us from using those things which were not being authorized. Like those privacy policies were incorrect. That is the meaning of unauthorized taking of user data. So yes, I think I made my point quite clear. Thank you.
Thank you, Muskan. We will now move on to the opposition whip.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are, Prashant. Please turn on your camera.
Respected judges, fellow opposition and fellow proposition and respected opposition, I would first like to define what the motion is. The motion clearly states that the ban on Chinese apps is prejudicial or harmful to the sovereignty and integrity of India, security of state and public order. Well, let's think about this one step at a time. How do we develop the security of the state and how do we maintain public order when the economy itself is not so great? Now, coming to talk, now I would like to first focus on the loss that has happened in the economy because of the banning of these apps. Because and now China has been a major contributor to the Indian tech industry because of the apps provided, because of the trade that was going on, and because of which there was always some sort of cash inflow. But recently, because of the drop in economy over the last few years, this is going to create another hollow wherein there will be even less cash inflow and there will not be enough money to maintain the security and maintain public order. And like the Honorable Prime Minister had stated, this would also not help us in providing the army, the Indian army, with an appropriate budget to save us from
Point of
the border
information.
attacks that are being taken place.
To that
Point
point,
of
I would
information.
like to deny it, but you still have your 15 seconds.
So should I go on?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So the Galwan Valley incident in June brought home the fact that the Chinese cannot be trusted. Our data is not safe in the Chinese hands. Whatever their ambassador, statesman, or spokesperson in Beijing may say, China is apt to act in a manner which suits it in a given situation. Irrespective of any treaties, understanding, or international law, Chinese are not our friends. And so it's time to let them know that India can respond in other than military ways.
To
China
that
will do whatever it takes to expand, and we need to stand against it.
to that point, I would
Moderator, was that
up
more
and
than 15 seconds?
I would also like to bring up an analogy to show
Is
you
it
that
is it a point of information?
yes, I already said to that point.
Okay.
Is it accepted or do I have only 15 seconds?
That is upon Prashant.
But no, it is rejected, but you have your 15 seconds.
Right. So you're basically telling that someone who's threatening to kill you, but you both have a good business relationship, so you will continue that business relationship so you can buy weapons to kill the person who's threatening to kill you. And at the same time, they're using that
Yes,
relation to
because
buy their own weapons.
Time's up, Muskan.
all right. Now, I do not deny that India has a very strong army, and I do not deny that security defense services are one of the best in the world. But after a point, considering the economy right now and considering the budget provided to the Indian armed forces, after a point, they will not receive the same budget because they will not be able to provide the same service. Now, yes, this is a very tricky situation. And the government had also raised this problem saying if they do try to give solutions, why are the public or why is the opposition not taking it? Well, if the government provides solutions that's going to help the country, obviously we'll go ahead with it, right? Now, moving on to social media that is creating a bad influence, a point that was brought up by the Honorable Prime Minister. Prime Minister, I apologize, but this has been going on for ever since social media had bloomed up. And just to name one particular incident, the attack in a mosque in New Zealand where people were shot and that footage was streamed live was not on TikTok or any other Chinese apps, but on Facebook, which is the American government, which again is a country that always works for their benefit rather than helping others. So I don't see why we must focus on only China if that is your problem or that is the concern right now. Now, moving on to cybercrime, the rate of cybercrime has been increasing well after the ban. Initially, although I admit the ban had taken place only in the second quarter of this year, 2020, India was in the 37th place for number of cybercrimes recorded in 2018, in the 24th place in 2019, and there is another 37% increase in the current year. Now, we are now I'll come to concluding for what I stand on. But we are in a world where black money helps the economy develop. Black money is a sad contributor to the development of the Indian economy. This was stated by the chief economist of World Bank. Helped us increase the economy by 7.4% all the way back in 2015 when Facebook and other social media platforms and other app based platforms were very much prevalent. Now, if that was allowed, if that was allowed by the government, why is the inflow of cash not allowed? Why is the economic safety of your own civilians not permitted in this case? I see a lot of selectivity in what the government is choosing to do. And if you guys say that another country works only for their benefit, then I'm sorry, but you fall in the right shadow. And I also never mind. I hence rest my case by saying that the economy is in a great loss,
Time's up.
because of how the
Prashant,
government has.
you're over your
My
time.
apologies, but I rest.
We'll now move on to the replies. Please note that no new arguments should be brought in the replies because you are not allowed to do so as per the instructions, and also place your stance in a way that your material is only in direct refutation to the arguments provided in the earlier speeches. So we will begin with the opposition leader's reply.
The opposition leader would firstly like to thank Mr. Speaker for providing this opportunity to speak again in this House. Firstly, reiterating the various points that have been made by the opposition in the course of this debate. Mutual coexistence is something that needs to be maintained with China for certain amounts of time, because as of now, if a sudden change was to be made, then that would create a collapse in the four pillars of the Indian security system, which is to say technology, innovation, economy, and security, because a lot of this is dependent upon Chinese goods. This is where mutual coexistence comes into play, and therefore there needs to be a gradual shift from Chinese products to other products that are available on the market. Secondly, talking about self-determination, a person's right to having their own opinions, but at the same time, making sure that if a person was to take on certain views and conduct actions which are anti-state, this is where the law enforcement agencies are supposed to be taking care of it. Talking about the economic aspect, the Chinese apps which have been banned by the Indian government are very important in the form of foreign exchange, because it talks about, as the opposition leader has mentioned, there is foreign exchange in the form of winnings, or be it in the form of reach and receive cash. Secondly, talking about hosting charges that the Indian government, that the Indian services charge for those Chinese apps to have their servers within the country, which is once again one of the major contributors to the foreign influx. This is, of course, one of the major changes in the economy that would take place if the ban is to continue. Now, talking about the privacy policies which were mentioned by the government and the opposition, the privacy policy once again is not scrutinized properly, or if it is scrutinized, then the results are seen multiple years or multiple months after those were made available to the concerned authorities, which is rather interesting, considering the fact that the proper scrutiny was done only after the incident in Galwan had taken place, which brings to notice perhaps certain other intentions that the government may have had. Lastly, the opposition would like to talk about how the safety of the nation is built upon the pillars of safety, which are technology, innovation, economy, and security, all of which are taking China as one of the major contributors in our country. For example, in the case of the fact that in the year 2019-20, 5% of total exports from India were accounted to China, and 14% of the imports were accounted to China. Talking about the security, once again, one of the major shortcomings that have been seen, that sure, the apps were banned and privacy breaches were sealed, but one of the major breaches that we can see is in the form of, for example, the CCTV business, where the Chinese company Hikvision, or I'm not sure how it's pronounced, Hikvision, and 19 other firms, which the United States government and other nations have confirmed are either owned or controlled by the Chinese military, are still a majority in the Indian market, which goes on to prove that there needs to be a auditing of what kind of products are being allowed and in what kind of spheres they are being allowed, because this is where privacy breaches also reach a climax. So yes, the banning of more than 200 apps, which is to say 267 apps to be exact, is definitely prejudicial to the sovereignty and the integrity of India, the security and of the public order.
Mr. Ojas, your time's up. So
thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. So we'll move ahead to the Honorable Prime Minister's reply.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and the members of the Parliament for presenting your views upon the topic. The ban of these Chinese apps is right and justified. These apps give information about every individual where they are traveling, and other minute data which China can easily use against India. This is symbolism which is very important. These apps are very dangerous because Chinese can put any bug in the software. When you play games on your phone or on various sites, you send millions of messages to those sites, and China can track where the individual message is coming from, and that can cause harm to the individual and a nation as a whole. For example, PUBG clocks about 13 million daily users, which according to defense and warfare experts can lead to disastrous personal security breach in the present situation. The Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology has received many complaints from various sources, including several reports about the misuse of some mobile apps available on Android and iOS platforms for stealing and suspiciously transmitting users' data in an unauthorized manner to the servers which have locations outside India. The compilation of these data, its mining and profiling by elements hostile to the national security and defense of India, which ultimately impinges upon the sovereignty and integrity of India, is a matter of very deep and immediate concern, which requires emergency measures.
Thank you, Honorable Prime Minister. It was a very energetic debate, and it is now the time to wrap up this debate. And I feel that a lot of stances were presented, and in the replies, there were few new evidence added as well, which was clearly mentioned in the instructions that no new evidence should be provided in the reply speeches. So we will be waiting for the judges to declare the final score, and then we'll release the results and the conclusion of this debate and the resolution that we have reached to. So please stay tuned with us. We'll only take a few minutes to release the results. In the meanwhile, I would like to invite our esteemed judges to give some feedback and their valuable words on how today's participants presented and how they could improve upon various skills related to debating. I would like to invite Dr. Sangeeta Shukla to share a few words with us.
Hello, everyone, and congratulations for that excellent and energetic debate that we just had. Just a few points that I noticed. First is the clarity of phrasing the topic. I think what the government said was that the Chinese apps are detrimental to the sovereignty and integrity of the country, not the ban. They justified the ban by saying that the Chinese apps are prejudicial to the, and that is why I think Muskan had that question initially, that if we are against, are we supporting the ban or not? So I think just a clarity on phrasing of the topic. A lot of you gave a lot of examples, and some of you mentioned that also, that why just Chinese apps? Why did the government single out Chinese app? If it was all about the integrity of the country, Facebook has come under a lot of fire because of, the scam of Cambridge Analytica. So data theft has been happening. We know WhatsApp, Instagram, fake news. So it's all about the integrity and sovereignty of the country. I think these apps are much bigger and they are a bigger threat. But by singling out Chinese app, the government is just playing to the gallery. When the border situation is so sensitive, the government should resort to diplomacy rather than taking populist moves, because at the time when our country is going through economic crisis, we can't have more expenditure on defense now. We can't handle a situation like that. And I think handling it first through diplomacy, which also the government has been doing. So I think that's my personal view on the whole issue of ban. When you're speaking, my only one advice is structure your thoughts. The audience should really know that instead of it becoming a rant about what you feel about it, if you say my first argument is on this, and you say security of the country, and what are you saying for that? And then say my second point that I would like, when you structure your argument a little better, I think for the audience, anybody listening to you, that it gives us a better anchor point. I understand the topic is given to you. You don't have time to research, so we don't expect a lot of data points to come from you. But even with whatever arguments you develop, just give us that first is this, my primary objection or my primary point of support is this, and then this, and then this, and support that. Instead of cramping too many points, develop just 2 to 3 points and develop it well. and let your audience know that which is your primary point, secondary point, and third point. So that was, but I think all of you are excellent speakers. And I wish we had more parliamentary debates in real like the one we had just now. I think then our country would be able to solve a lot of problems and a lot of issues if we had more parliamentary debates like this. Thank you. I will just enter my scores and then probably you know the result.
Thank you for the wise words, ma'am. I would now like to invite Dr. Gunjan Rehani to speak a few words.
Okay, good evening all. So
Good evening, ma'am.
good evening. So you all did a great job. So I would like to give my feedback, like what I found, whatever was missing, I would like to conclude. So starting with the speech by the Prime Minister, right? So I found, like, I also agree that the information is being stealed, but what I found was there were a lot of facts missing in your speech. So when you started really good, but you missed on a lot of facts. So the thing is, whenever you are like justifying yourself, you should be able to like justify along with your facts. So what I found was you missed on why this ban is being like, why this ban is being held now, why not before. So you did not justify this thing. So I found this thing missing. Plus the opposition party, what I found was, so they said like they said, so like the opposition party or just for raise this point that like this is the like this is what he said was like the privacy policy should be like carefully taken care of by the people, like by the government. So the opposition party, I found, yeah, yes, they raised their points really very well. So what I think is both parties, they have given you facts really good, but there was certain at some points I found like some people, they missed on certain facts. So this is the difference between the two parties. Both of you, you were dealing it with very well, but some places one of the person was like lacking with facts. So this is the only difference. So what I feel, so this is the only feedback but I have. So yes, it was a very good debate. Everyone, you did it very well.
Thank you for the feedback, ma'am.
It was not tough competition, but group 1 won with 7 marks. So Prashant, Ojaswa and Shreya, you guys won, and the best speaker award will be taken by Ojaswa.
Congratulations, Ojaswa and Group 1. It was a wonderful round, and the kind of energy was unparalleled, and I've never seen that before, to be honest. And I would also like to congratulate Group 2 for giving up a wonderful competition to the other teams, and it was a really great debate tonight. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It was a wonderful debate, and we are really glad at CSI to have you all with us here tonight. We wish you all the best in all your future endeavors. I would now like to invite Altamas to propose the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Jen. So that way now we have come to the end of this event, Tech Vivad. I'd like to extend my vote of thanks to all the judges who came here and judged this event so fruitfully, and we are happy that all the participants here also debated and discussed among themselves so with so much enthusiasm and so much of energy. And I can finally call this event a good success.
With this, I would like to declare this event closed. All the best and hope to see you soon again.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.